Hello, my name is Trevor Sanford. I'm in the New Testament class with Professor John Ball. This will be my presentation for the exegetical paper we're having to write. My passage is on Philippians 2, verses 12 through 18. It's under the heading, Lights in the World. The main point of this passage is about how to live out the Christian life, and Paul encouraging the church in Philippi to continue living out their life as Christians, the way that we're supposed to walk day to day. And so it focuses a lot on sanctification and living as a sanctified person in the world. So the outline of the passages and the content really, 12 to 14, Paul is encouraging them to continue obeying and to let the Holy Spirit continue the work of sanctification. And he words it as this, for it is God who works in you both to will and to work for his good pleasure. So he's saying, continue to let God do the work inside of you to change what you want and how you act in the day-to-day life to be more geared towards, what he wants and what his will is. 14 to 16 is an encouragement in the daily life to work with a good attitude, to be set apart and blameless and different from the rest of the world. And, that's very evident. He says, you may be blameless and innocent, children of God without blemish, amongst an evil and crooked generation. And so he's saying, you need to go out and you need to live differently and you need to walk differently and you need to do things with a good attitude the way that Jesus did, so that you will be counted as set apart, so that people will see that you're set apart. And Christians are not the same as the rest of, humanity. And then 17 to 18, another thing that was going on was the church was kind of worried about Paul. This was when he wrote this when he was imprisoned in Rome, we believe. And so, Paul says not to worry about him, but rather rejoice with him, and set his actions and his attitude as an example. And so it says, I did not run in vain or labor in vain. Even if I'm to be poured out as a drink offering, I'm glad and rejoice with you all. And so that he really is saying, whether I keep my life and continue my ministry or I give up my life and go and see, the Lord, I'm going to have a great attitude. I'm going to weep and moan, but I'm going to rejoice for either one because they're both good. And so he's encouraging these Philippians to have a similar attitude, and that way they can walk out as lights in the world, which is the heading of this passage. For context, the church in Philippi was actually one of the first churches, I think it was the first church that Paul had planted in Europe. And so, unlike Corinthians and the church in Ephesus, the book of Philippians he's not making any corrections. They're actually doing really well. And so one of the things that he's writing about is not to be content with how well you're doing, not to be, not to reach a plateau and say, we're doing well, let's stay here. But it's to continue to work on sanctification, continue to work on the way that we're living our lives, continue to always be striving to be better and better and living more and more for Jesus as we, live every single day. And so that's kind of the context of this book. Paul is in prison when he wrote it in Rome. And these Philippians are kind of worried about him. They've kind of heard word that he has been in prison and they don't know what's going to happen. And so they're worried about him because they've been supporting his ministry as he goes on. And he's writing back to tell them, not to worry about him. And he's writing back to tell them, basically, you guys are doing a good job. Don't stop. Continue forward. Continue progressing. Continue becoming holier, and giving them some ideas on how they can do that. For application, I really think the application is for us is how we can focus on continuing to be sanctified. That it has nothing to do necessarily with us only, but it's a work that the Holy Spirit does inside of us as we work with him towards becoming more sanctified. And Paul really, in that first section where he says, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, for it is God who works in you to will and to work for his good pleasure. And so I think it's important that we take a step back and say, while we are in ministry school, we are not perfect, and we have to continually work towards our sanctification every day. And so I think it's important that that be one application, as well as how we as sanctified children and as people counted as righteous under the household of God should be working out every single day of our lives, should be living and should be walking every day of our lives. And so those are the two applications that I am going to be writing about. For the reference books, the other books, I have an ESV study Bible, and it's got a lot of great notes, as well as a great preface for every book. So I'll be using that as the Bible, and as well as the other things inside of it. The Blue Letter Bible I was using for some original Greek words to see exactly what they meant. So I'll be using the Blue Letter Bible as well. And then Philippians, the Christ-Centered Exposition by Tony Merida and Francis Chan, as well as Paul's letters to the Philippians by Gordon Fee. And so those are going to be my resources. Thank you so much.